known as Bill to his friends, Bill Bell to children all around, Sonny to his relatives, and Dad or Granddad to the rest of us, was born in Houston, Texas on March 4th, 1942. His family eventually moved to California for the newspaper business, and he spent much of his early life on his grandfather's ranches in California and Colorado while his photojournalist parents traveled. During high school and later at the University of Texas, Bill had a number of exciting jobs and sport interests. He was a deckhand on Mississippi towboats, and he made several voyages as an ordinary seaman on American merchant ships. His interest in cave exploring at UT led him to dangerous but well-paying jobs as a steeplejack, working on bridges and TV and radio towers. After leaving UT, Bill was an architectural assistant for Randall Duell and Associates, designers of many theme parks such as Six Flags and Astroworld. But back to the caving for a moment. Over Thanksgiving break in 1962, Bill and a few like-minded friends traveled into the mountains of Mexico, where their passion and love for caving took root. The first couple of years of caving in Mexico, he and his fellow explorers didn't have trucks, so they took the great buses of Mexico down to the caving areas. On the bus and on the road, they had to carry all their gear. The long rope was braided so the load could be shared. Needless to say, lifelong friendships were made along the way. Bill and his friends explored many caves in the region, and in the spring of 1964, launched the first expedition into, all right, Terry, say it for me. Where is he? Okay. Which was eventually surveyed to a depth of 1,488 feet, making it the deepest in the Americas for a while. And one of his notable caving trips, you might have seen a picture on the slide earlier, involved the recovery of the body of a much-loved professor who had fallen down a 200-foot pit. Instead of accepting payment for this somewhat morbid task, they asked the people of the village to show them more caves. Now, once the actual caving finally stopped, the caving reunions began. And Bill looked forward each year to that weekend of revelry and reminiscing. And he regarded many of those people as more than just friends. They were family. Friendships that deep are rare, and these withstood the test of time and weathered many ups and downs throughout the years. In the midst of all that caving, he married the love of his life, the beautiful and accomplished Lynn Rowe, in 1964. And immediately they began the adventure of raising 3 children together. Bill took his young family on a detour to Taos, New Mexico for 1 year, in 1974, where he learned the craft of silversmithing from a teepee and a log cabin, I might add. And when he was there, he was able to get a closer feel for the work and to learn from others doing it, before they ultimately chose Fredericksburg over Austin and Houston to put down roots. They believed that this small, sleepy town, which isn't so sleepy anymore, was the best place to nurture a family. Their values of faith, family, and country were passed down to their children. Now, Bill's greatest regret in life was letting the love of his life slip away, and although she passed in 1993, he never stopped loving her. Many of our late night conversations over the years involved precious memories of her, and I know he would want to remind all of us on this special day of memories how important relationships are in our lives, and encourage us to protect and nourish them. I'm tough when it comes to my dad, it's my mom again. And he knows that. He's the same way. Okay. Although highly intellectual and naturally adventurous, Bill soon learned that he had a gift for working with his hands. He embraced that gift wholeheartedly when Bill Bell Silversmith was born up there in the mountains of Taos, New Mexico. The precision and beauty he created with some homemade tools, ingenuity, and creativity is unparalleled. And if you own a piece of work that he made, a belt, a bracelet, a keychain, count yourself blessed. He tried a few times to teach us the craft, but our sense of detail never matched his, so we'd all give up. Some days I wish I'd tried harder, but then reality sets in, and I realized that he was one of a kind, and gifted in that department in a way that I wasn't. And that's okay. It was just another opportunity for him to speak to me about God's giftings and grace in each of our lives. He said he didn't understand them, but that he knew they were real. He was the #1 fan of Billy, Heather, and Amber, and he was so proud of everything we accomplished, whether big or small. He told me all the time what a wonderful mother I was, and I would try to tell him those were just things that moms did, but he would never hear of it. He was very good for my spirit whenever I was feeling down or overwhelmed. And he didn't talk a lot of nonsense either. He once told me, early in my marriage, not to come to him with a complaint about my husband, assuming he would take my side. He said that Donald was now his son too, and he would support him. I can't tell you how wise that was, and how much security it gave me. Bill Bell was definitely one of a kind. His long hair hippie antics used to freak me out a bit, especially growing up in a conservative area like this. But his conservative life views fit right in. He was a firm believer that he was a sinner in need of a Savior, and that God's grace was evident in his life. He preferred smaller government, less regulation, stricter adherence to the Constitution, and he loved the Second Amendment and making his own way. He was not a respecter of persons and would befriend or chat up anyone, especially the older he got. Leslie's nodding. He always said that he was easily entertained. I'm not sure if it was his decision or a joint decision between he and Mom, but we didn't have TV in the house growing up. He encouraged us to read, and to go outside. And we raised lots of animals. What made him a tenuous farmer at best was that he became almost ridiculously attached to each of those animals. Many of them became like family members. How many remember Blondine, our cantankerous old Jersey milk cow? She gave 2 to 4 gallons of milk a day. Yes, we even churned our own butter. And he and Mom were both great cooks, adventurous cooks, if you know what I mean. Probably the reason that today we kids will eat almost anything. And his collection of cast iron skillets is unrivaled. We were thinking about bringing one and then handing them out to people as they... And the music. What a crazy array he listened to while working silver at all hours of the day and night. Opera, bluegrass, bagpipes, peppered with the loudest, most staticky baseball and football games you can imagine. And that was before talk radio captured his fancy. Bill was definitely one of a kind. Where else would you find a Christian, conservative, artistic, hippie mountain man wrapped up in one package? Bill's legacy will live on in the many beautiful silver concha belts he meticulously handcrafted, in his children and their children who loved him dearly, and in the friendships he made wherever he ventured, and venture he did. He never ceased to marvel at God's grace and how it allowed him to live a life of high adventure. Perhaps you were blessed to have been on some of these adventures with him, or perhaps you were blessed to hear him tell the tales. Either way, be encouraged by his gusto for life.
That's